Okay, it's David again. We're still in October, whatever, 7th, 10th, who knows, who cares. I wanted to talk in this particular video. The Mormons have a phrase: you can leave the church, but you can't leave the church alone. And that is a phrase that the Mormon philosophy and cult uses to prove that the church is true. If the church is persecuted by members or non-members or in any way, whatever persecutions come upon the Mormon church or its people, they are trained in the cult to say, well, see, the church is true. Satan has sent these people to attack us and to destroy the church. Well, let me give you a real good piece of information. No one is trying to destroy the Mormon church. It is insignificant in the world. Most people don't give a rat's ass about the Mormon church. There's more Muslims in Jerusalem, I'm exaggerating, than all of the Mormons in the world. Take a look at the numbers. The idea of not being able to leave them alone. Let me give you some examples of why, and I'm speaking of me. I'm not speaking of all the people that will not leave them alone. I don't know what they think. I don't know what they say. I'm talking about me, David. Why? I don't leave them alone. They say I don't leave them alone, and yet not one of my videos that you look at ever says, oh, leave the Mormon church, it's terrible. Oh, they're going to kill you. They're going to... None of my videos say that. My videos say, just like this one is saying, if you're happy and you want to be a Mormon, good Lord, stay in there, pay your tithing, do what the Mormon church tells you to do. If you're happy, that's fine, I don't care. You know, I have no vested interest. I'm not making money from the Mormon church. No one's paying me to do these videos. They're in my own home. They're basically of my own liking. I make up my own script. No one controls me anymore. And that's a wonderful feeling after coming out of the cult. So why don't we leave them alone? Well, let me give you a couple of maybe quick ideas. One is how many years you've spent with them, whether it's 1 year or 50 years, they have robbed you of happiness. They've robbed you of your money. They've robbed you of relationships, maybe a job, and alienation of your children, your wives, your other extended family. I think that's one reason that some people can't leave them alone. Why some people, like myself, raise my voice and go, it wasn't what they told me it was going to be. When you're robbed of years and happiness in your life, you get angry and you feel betrayed. That's one reason we don't leave them alone, quote. Another reason we don't leave them alone is I've had posted now on my door, private residence, big no solicitation sign on the door and outside, and the Mormons come knocking. And I say to myself, can you people even read? And they go, oh, we're not soliciting. I said, you're not asking for my gross income for the rest of my life? That's not soliciting? Oh no, we don't solicit. I said, well, that's what your mission president and your state president say, but it's not true, is it? Well, we're not solicitors. See, they just go back into a rotation of cult sayings and phrases that have been put in there subliminally. So they knock on my door. Then the local ward or stake takes Scotch tape and they tape on meetings and special events or whatever on my private door. I've asked them not to do that over and over. I've called the stake president 2 or 3 times. I've gone to the city attorney twice, said, hey, they're soliciting and they're bothering me. But see, he's in the state presidency. So he says, well, they don't really solicit. He's got the same brain. So I have gone out a couple of times and I see him walking out there and I say to them personally, I do confront them now because most people, they're afraid to confront young people, but if they're doing something I don't approve of, and I say to them, you know, there's no soliciting in here. Oh, we're not soliciting. I say, if you're knocking on doors and you're tracting in here, you are soliciting. and I will call the police. Well, they go until the new missionary is transferred in 2 weeks later, and then he and she shows up in the same damn place. It's just, it's a chaotic environment that they keep these missionaries in, so that they don't feel that there's people out here that don't really want to hear them. And you go walking down the street, and sure enough, you'll see two people on a bicycle with a tie on. I mean, you know, when most people ride a bike, they don't wear a tie, but you know, you can spot a missionary 700 miles away. And again, they're in our communities trying to make people members of their church. Now they do that, like Jehovah's Witness, I guess, in the name of Jesus, that he said, you know, be a light unto the world, and, you know, get everyone to join your church, because that's what I want you to do. So if you believe that, just open your door and let them come in and give them some cookies and pay 10% of your gross income for the rest of your life. I was on Facebook a couple of days ago, 2 or 3 times, and they have some advertisements down the side. And I guess because of these tapes or whatever, I don't know how, but Joseph Smith's picture pops up on the right-hand side. I can buy it for $118. I don't pay that kind of money for toilet paper. And I tried to click on it, and it only clicked on buy this for $118. And if you like this, click here. And I looked around and I didn't like it, and I thought, gee, there must be a place to click that says don't like it. It's Mormon. There's no click for don't like it. They won't leave me alone. They come up on my Facebook, they knock on my doors, they walk out in front of my place here dressed strangely, but you know who they are and what they want. Here, they own Channel 5 in Salt Lake City, and it's not the most popular channel anymore. They've just slipped to number 2 finally this year. The Channel 2 is the most watched newscast. The Desert News, every time I go to a newspaper stand, I have to look at that piece of crap. It doesn't report news. All it reports is how many Mormon girls have had babies this week. An exaggeration, but you get my point. They won't leave us alone. They won't. And so July 24th, I guess it is, it's a Mormon holiday here in the state of Utah, and it's called Pioneer Day. Well, there's pioneers in every state, but Utah thinks their pioneers suffered more greatly because of the Mormon religion, which isn't true. The pioneers, no matter where they pioneered, to what state or territory, they suffered the same thing the Mormons did. You know, people died, and there was disease, and their children were eaten by wolves, and that had nothing to do with religion, but the Mormon Church thinks that that is paramount to the Satan trying to keep them from coming to Utah. And, you know, they make this stuff up, and the cult makes it up and then feeds it to them, and then they believe it because the prophet saw Jesus last night, and Jesus said, have my people believe this. So Channel 5, Desert News are constantly trying to pump up the good things about the Mormon Church. Of course, it's getting less and less, but they still predominantly are that way. And Channel 7 and Channel, I think it's 11, are owned by BYU. And they're in cahoots with the public broadcasting station. And they play the Tabernacle Choir on there pretty much when they want, and they have talks from BYU, and then we have specials all over our cable that the Joseph Smith papers. You know, I don't know, is that toilet paper? I don't know. Was it you know, from a mummy that was a funeral ceremony and not the Book of Abraham? I don't know. Why don't we leave them alone? You know what? I haven't had the Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, the Lutheran Church, the Muslims, the Hindu, I haven't had any of those people do these things. I had the Jehovah's Witness knock on the door once. Told them I wasn't interested. They walked away. That was the end of that. I put a no solicitation sign, LDS, no solicitation sign on my door. 2 weeks later, it was ripped off. They won't leave us alone. I have a right to put that on my door. But when the Mormons see it, they yank it off the door. I was over at the senior center, and I walked in, and there's a great big sign there that says, see the, I don't know what it was now. It was, I think, the sword of Joseph Smith, the prophet, a great big poster right when you walk into the door. And I looked at that, and the senior center is public monies. They're people that use the taxpayers' money, and why do they have the quote prophet? Now, if they said the pedophile Joseph Smith, it would have been more accurate, but I don't think they're going to put that up. So I went in and saw the director, and I said, what the, you can't do that with public money. She says, well, it has nothing to do with religion. And I said, well, yeah, you're showing it at a museum, which is a public place, but when you put the word prophet in front of Joseph Smith's name, now you've made it religious. And she said, well, you know what? You're right. We'll take it down. Okay. Why don't we leave them alone? Because they won't leave us alone. Never. Never. They're relentless on making you part of their religion, and if you're not, you're an evil person. I went into the public library and went to the desk, and I saw this sign on the desk that said Mormon literature. I looked at that, and I went over to the librarian, and I said, why do you have that sign there? This is a public library. This isn't part of the Mormon Church. And why don't you have Catholic literature there, or Muslim, or Hindu? Well, most of the people are Mormons. And I said, well, that doesn't mean that you can use public monies to promote their religion. So she said, well, call the head librarian. I did. She agreed with me. They took it down. The reason, and when Mormons say to you, others have left the church, but they know it's right. They won't leave us alone. And they use that as a edict from God that they are a persecuted people. Let me tell you something. Mormons are persecuted because they persecute other people, and they do it institutionally. When I went over to vote, oh my God, take a look at the line of Republicans and the signs and the red flags and the signs, tokens, and symbols all over them to vote Republican, and I just kind of get in a little short line, and I'm a piece of crap. I'm a piece of crap. They'll post their election people that are Mormons on your lawn without your permission. Try sending your kids out for trick-or-treat in a Mormon community. They do trunk-or-treat. The Mormons bring their cars into their parking lots of their chapels and then open the trunks, and it has candy in it for the kids. But if you're not a Mormon and you don't want to do it that way, try to go have a successful Halloween in Mormonville. It ain't going to happen. So we are inundated, and we're surrounded with crap. Crap of a cult. I say, and please quote me. Please quote me. If you want to be in that religion and you enjoy the things that they do and you believe, for God's sakes, stay in it. Enjoy it. But learn that there's some of us who have been in, we're not excommunicated, we're not in a church of court of love, which is a court of hate. We haven't had any offenses. We just looked at the doctrine. We started thinking, that doesn't make sense. An angel with a flaming sword chased Joseph Smith around and threatened him that if he didn't marry 14-year-olds, that he would cut his head off. That makes sense to me. I don't know about you, but that makes good sense to me. Please, send the angel to my house. I am telling you my experience. They haven't been mean to me, they haven't been cruel, they haven't been obnoxious, other than their usual obnoxiousness throughout the whole society. They show up on my Facebook, they show up on my doorstep, they show up in my community at the library, they show up in my community at the senior center. Anytime that there is a tour bus guide, it's always to Mormon historical sites. They're there, they're everywhere. They're like a damn cockroach. I'll tell you that right now. They're like cockroaches. They come out of the woodwork. Go into a restaurant in Mormonville, and you'll see I'm going to be kind. You see these people bowing their heads at the buffet, and speaking out loud, oh God, we thank you, and we know the church is true, and we're wearing our garments, and you can see it, you know we're one of the great people, please take us to heaven. I don't want to go to a damn restaurant and hear that shit. I'll tell you that right now. When I go in and spend whatever, $20, $50, $100, I'll never spend $100, but to go into a restaurant, I don't want to see a bunch of Mormon garments hanging out their pants, the women bend over, and rather than seeing a cute little tattoo, you see, you know, skid marks on garments. I'm not interested. And I'll tell you another thing I'm not interested in, going into a restaurant and having 4 or 5 little kids under 5 jumping around the tables, running around the room, screaming, yelling, throwing shit. And they're a Mormon family. I was down in a Mexican restaurant just 2 weeks ago. And there's 3 guys sitting there, and you know it's an elders quorum president because they're always obnoxious and they're always talking too loud. And he's sitting at a table, and there's about 12 tables around that can hear this guy's BS. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. So I can be obnoxious at times, and so I'm trying in my old age to be more socially acceptable. So I called the waiter over and I said, would you mind telling those gentlemen over there that they're speaking too loud and it's disturbing others? He said, well, okay. So he comes back and he says, well, I talked to our manager and she said that if you'd like to move to another table where it's quieter, we'd be happy to do that. And I said, well, gee, I'm sitting here with my 85-year-old mother, and why is the burden on us to move away from his obnoxiousness? Why isn't the burden on him to shut up? Well, I don't know. And see, here's the Mormon thing. And I have to tell you a sidelight. There was a statue of David, a picture of the statue of David and his genitals in front of the picture there. And the Mormons had taken napkins and covered his genitals so that they could go into the restaurant and eat. Why don't we leave them alone? They won't leave us alone. I go out of the restaurant, the manager comes up to me and says, is there a problem? I said, yeah, there is. You should have taken some responsibility to tell those people they're out of bounds. They're speaking too loud in a public place. This is a restaurant. It is not a convention center. Well, we just offered you another table because we thought, I said, you thought it would be easier because you don't have to confront anybody. Mormons can do what they want. They can do what they want. Well, not when they're around me. I refrained myself. I was cool. I got back in the car, got my mom back in the car and drove away. Now I'm telling you, why don't we leave them alone? That's why. I've given you several examples why we don't leave them alone. Let me give you one more. The other day I was reading, and the general conference was coming up here in Utah, and the seminary program thought it would be a good idea for their students to dress up in their Sunday best. There's nothing wrong with that. The Catholics want to wear little, dresses and uniforms. There's nothing wrong with that. So the Mormons all dressed up and went to seminary. And guess what they do after seminary? They come over to my daughter's school. All the girls have pretty dresses on and the boys have ties. And my girl's pretty smart. Hopefully I can take some credit for that. And I said to her, when those kids come over with all their clothes fancy like that, what does that say about you? She said, Dad, it says I'm a non-member. I said, that's exactly what it says. And I said, you go over there and you smile and you be the best person you can be helpful and be kind, and ignore that. I'll take care of it. I did. I went over to the school. They hate me. All the schools here hate me because I do this crap. And I will talk to the assistant principal, and I said, hey, and he's Muslim. He's from West Jordan. And I said, how do you think the kids feel that are not in seminary and are Mormons, and then you can look out into the audience and see who's a Mormon and who's not? I said, the Mormons do that with their garments, but now they're doing it with dress clothes. He said, you're right. You're right, and we're going to do something about it. I said, thanks. Goodbye. Why don't we leave them alone? Because they think up new shit every day to hassle the crap out of non-members. They have no respect for us. They have, I go into a restaurant now. God, it's taken me, 60 years. I went to a restaurant the other day, and I said to my wife, do you mind driving home? I don't drive if I drink at all. And I drink one drink every 3 months. One drink every, and I'm an alcoholic. According to the Mormon Church, I'm an alcoholic. And so I said, I'm going to have a pina colada. Do you mind driving home? Oh, you should have seen the people looking around the restaurant going, see, he's a non-member, and he's an alcoholic, and he's going to kill us, my children out on the road. These people will not leave anyone alone. If you smile, put on magic underwear, and a white shirt so everybody can see the marks, and my second wife could see the marks on the knees. She could tell someone wearing garments by just the little crease on their knees through their clothing. When I went down to have my physical years ago, many years ago, for getting into the military, which I didn't get in, thank God. The guy said, okay, all the guys in here, and take off your underwear or your garments. It's the federal government. Federal government. They're already trained to say your garments. I'm sure there's many, many other incidences that I can come up with, but let me just kind of quickly summarize what I'm saying here. When you hear Mormons say, yeah, people can leave the church, but they can't leave the church alone. What that means is we don't want people speaking the truth. We don't want people telling you their experience inside the cult. We don't want our secrets divulged to the world. We don't want other people to know we're wearing magic underwear, that we believe bullets can't go through, and that fire cannot go through, and that when Jesus comes and takes people into heaven, he's going to be checking for garments. Man, when you hear this crap, please let it go into your brain, and please think about it. I did. I'm out. I'm out. This makes no sense to me. Marrying 14-year-olds and magic underwear and plates, gold plates, they weren't brass, they weren't, you know, he's a gold digger, so the plates were gold. And now, they went into heaven, but everybody saw him. Well, go look at the record. Nobody saw him. They were under a sheet. Nobody saw him. And he's testing us. He didn't want to leave the gold plates here so that we knew this was, the Book of Mormon was true, but the angel took them. Well, my brain says that that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. When I was a Mormon, and I just accepted that. That's just the way life was. The angel Moroni took those plates, and up they went. So, when you see the billboards, we see them on I-15 here all the time, of, you know, there is beauty all around when there's love at home, and there's the temple in the background, $10,000 a month of your tax, or I mean your tithing money. We see billboards. There's several in Provo, Utah County, that you know, on BYU, adult education, and come to where peace and harmony. You see the temple, and you see billboards, advertisements on TV, my Facebook, Twitter. I put on a church news on my Twitter. It took me 2 days to get it off. 2 days to get it off, because once you get sucked in to anything Mormon, there's no way to complain, there's no way to answer questions, and there's no way to hit the back button. You're in, and you're going to be running for a long time until you figure out, being a computer genius, how to get those people out of your lives and out of a headache. The Mormon Church uses boiler rooms. They call and call and call on their own websites, showing the hits way up. Everybody's interested in the Mormon Church. I don't. You can look at my videos, and you know, one person looks at them and no one looks at them. It's the truth. 10 million people looking at Mormon.org? Not true. They use boiler rooms and missionaries to make hits onto that website, so it makes it look popular. When you Google anything about the Mormons, why do you think the Mormon Church is on the first page? Just like recovery from Mormonism is on the first page, the Mormon Church has paid millions and millions and millions of dollars of your tax, I keep saying tax, your tithing money, to be on that search engine on the first page with commercials and with hits. And their boiler room hits and hits and hits, and so Google can't tell the difference if it's Mormon boys on a mission calling or if it's people seeking Mormon information. The Mormon Recovery Board, which I recommended a couple of times on different videos, not that I get paid, not that anyone that knows me, they don't even know my name, they don't even know my address, there's no motivation, there's no nepotism, there's nothing. But the Mormon Recovery spends $700 a year and has 1 million hits a month. Legitimate, 1 million. There's no boiler room, and there's no way you can boiler room Mormon recovery. You can boiler room Google. And so Mormon recovery spends $700 a year on hosting 1 million hits a month. What's wrong with these pictures? Another thing that they won't leave us alone on, and I'm just going to put this on the end, here's the mall, the downtown mall. The Mormon Church is building a $4 or $5 billion downtown mall in the middle of the Salt Lake City ghetto, right across from the temple. They started out trying to sell the 1 bedroom or whatever, 2 or 3 bedroom, I guess, condos for $500,000. Gee, none of them sold. Now the prices dropped to like $150,000, and there's only 20% sold. And half the people that put deposits down on it before it was built have backed out. It's an eyesore. It's an eyesore. Why don't they leave us alone? On our buses, you see advertisements for the Mormon Church and missionaries. It's like living in a potty and trying to stay away from the shit. That's what it's like living in Utah. It's living in a toilet and trying not to get touched by shit. It's almost impossible. Why don't we leave them alone? We do. But they won't leave us alone, and we have a right, I have a right, of telling my experience. I'm not saying this happens to everybody in the world. I'm saying it happened to me. I'm sitting here and I'm telling you they've knocked on that door. I'm telling you they posted on that door. I'm telling you I look out over there and I see them walking and I see TV. I'm telling you my experience. Go talk to other Mormons that are happy. You might want to pay all of your money to them, and you might enjoy, that magic underwear. It's really sexy. Thanks.